What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the premiere episode of the No Contest Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, O'Shea Jackson Jr.
And I'm TJ Jefferson.
And we're here to give you what you've been asking for. You know, we want to make some noise in the wrestling podcast area, and we feel like we have the product that everyone's missing out. And obviously, with your premiere episode, we want to make a statement. So who better to bring on than CM Punk?
Right? Come on, we didn't.
Who do we think we are?
We didn't. If this was a football game, we didn't bring you the 54th man on the 53-man roster.
No way.
If this was a movie, we didn't bring you number 15 on the call sheet.
No, sir.
We brought you number 1 on the call sheet.
CM Punk,
Chick Magnet, Charles Montgomery Punk. And O'Shea, we were talking. People were like, "Well, why are you getting into this podcast business?"
Yeah.
And I think the 21st century poet KRS-One summed it best when he said, "Let us begin. Who, what, why, or when, all be explained like instructions to a game." So who are we?
Well, I'm as I said, O'Shea Jackson Jr. It's wrestling has been such a major part of my life, whether it be, not only the entertainment side, but as a kid, a way to make friends. It's always been, I mean, not exactly water cooler talk when you're a kid, but it's just always been something to speak on, like the greatest soap opera ever made.
Absolutely.
And it's you learn life lessons through wrestling. You learn important qualities to shape the person that you're going to be, whether that's a baby face or a heel. And I think the most important part of wrestling is sometimes bad guys win.
Absolutely. Two things there that you brought up. Well, one of them was water cooler talk. And the funny thing is, back when I was in junior high and high school, we used to love the Great Muta. Shout out to the Great Muta, a guy who I hope we get to talk about as this pod goes on. But, Muta was always big with the mist. So me and my boys, we get like between classes, go to the water fountains. We didn't have water coolers. We had water fountains, and we'd take a mouthful of water. And as we'd see each other walking down the hallways in school, we kind of move to shoot the water up in the air, and I didn't even think about that till you just said that water cooler. that thing took me back a little bit, man. But yeah, just a huge wrestling fan myself. I grew up watching and loving all sports, and professional wrestling was just one of those things that, small group of friends liked it, got a little older. Those people found other interests. But for me, I just never lost it, man. I never lost the fun of watching wrestling, even when it really wasn't that good sometimes, to be honest. I never lost the thrill. My grandma once said to my grandfather, my grandfather's the reason I became such a huge fan. She would be like, "Why are you guys watching that old wrestling?" And my grandfather, he gave her an answer that I use to this day. He goes, "Well, you watch them stories all day, don't you?"
Exactly.
He goes, "Are the stories real? Like, all, as the world turns, guiding light, is that stuff real?" And that kind of hit me as a little kid. Like, yeah, if soap opera for men, and that's what really wrestling is. And women can't cut them out.
Exactly. And for me, it was my older brother, Daryl. I got introduced to wrestling through video games, WWF Raw for Sega Genesis, and that led to Nintendo 64 with WCW versus NWO and WWF No Mercy and things like that. And I started to really watch it every week, probably second, third grade. So like 99, 2000 is when I really I need to see this every week. Back when, SmackDown was on UPN. Rest in peace to UPN.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, technically, isn't UPN CW now?
I mean,
so I guess it's
didn't
back.
they merge back in the
I guess
day?
it's back.
Yeah, right.
But so that was, that was my introduction, and the same thing. My grandmother, she put me on the One Life to Live General Hospital. I just happened to watch Raw and SmackDown.
That's what's up.
So it's some of the best memories I have as a kid. The storytelling, the sacrifice. As I got older, I really started to appreciate the sacrifice. These guys have no off season. These guys are away from their family. Hearing stories about how Bret Hart would spend Christmas morning with his kids, and then by noon he got to get on a flight. Those are the things where you start to appreciate everyone within the squared circle. And I think that's what we want to do with our podcast. Is usually you go to shows and they'll talk to guys trying to promote either the upcoming event or whatever happened recently on their represented promotions. what we want to do is kind of tap into that psyche a little bit and humanize these stars.
Yeah.
Give them an avenue to be a fan, to be the men and women that turned into the superstars and pro wrestlers that we know. And I think eventually you as fans will agree with us that there is no contest.
Exactly. And the thing about these wrestlers, like you said, they give so much to us as fans. Any one of these Dark Side of the Ring documentaries, any one of these documentaries on sports that you see, I've started to realize lately, these wrestlers, their children get interviewed. Mm-hmm. And what you find out is because their parents, their mom and their dad were on the road entertaining us all the time, they never really had that parental figure in their life. And I kind of got to the point where I felt a little bit bad, the fact that, like, we took your dad away from you for 300 days out of the year to, entertain us. But you never think about the effect it has on those kids in the family unit. So, humanizing wrestlers, I think, is definitely something we absolutely want to do, kind of maybe help them. And there's a lot of places they can go, but we want to make this a destination. I want people to feel comfortable. I want them to feel like their voice will be heard. I want them to know that this is a safe space, that, whatever you got to say, you can come here and let it out, and we're here for them. And I think that's one of the things that we hope to bring to this podcast world. And, this because let's just face it, you've made a name for yourself on Twitter or X, however you want to say it, kind of just going after people, maybe playing the heel role, and people really get upset and up in arms, or they really agree with you. But there's a lot of toxic nature on social media with wrestling. I personally don't like the toxic nature. I want to kind of put some positivity in there, and that's what I hope to bring to this whole thing.
That's why you Obi-Wan, bro. I'll be Anakin. I'll be a little twisted a little bit. You don't know which side he's going to go on, but yeah, absolutely. What I think also with my age and maturing and understanding, you start to realize a heel that you've hated, it's just a man good at his job.
Very good at his job.
Just a man good at his job. That's what he's supposed to do. Wrestling at its core is meant to give you a feeling. And if it doesn't give you that feeling, it's not something that will last the test of time the way that it has.
Facts.
And, we're going to talk to CM Punk today, and we're also going to talk to Phil Brooks, get him
even more
to come out a little bit, And I think that's important for us to remember as fans, as those who get to be entertained, to see that human side, to understand that this is a person who, no matter how much they might grind your gears, just really good at their job.
Exactly.
What can you say?
Exactly. So, like Karis once said, we gave you the who, the why, the what. How about the when? Let them know when they can catch us.
Oh, you can catch us every Wednesday. We are very reliable. We will be here for you as long as you are here for us. Every Wednesday, you can check us out. We will make sure that we are posted on all platforms as far as where you get your podcast. You can listen to us anywhere.
So you'll be able to catch us on the Rich Eisen Show YouTube page, almost 1 million followers there, along with other podcasts, Overreaction Monday, What the Football, a new basketball podcast with NBA veteran Jim Jackson. We're kind of rolling right now, man, and things are looking good, and we just want to bring you all types of quality content. And don't forget, you can follow us on our Instagram page, and it's simply at No Contest Wrestling Podcast. It's long, but every other variation was taken. So
what do you want us to do?
What do you want us to do?
We figured it out. It's the premiere episode. All right, man. Got to keep the lights on around here. Ladies and gentlemen, as promised, the Second City Saint, Mr. Money in the Bank, the best in the world, your friend and mine, Mr. CM Punk. Welcome to the pod. Welcome to the pod. Dude.
Appreciate you.
For me.
Welcome to the pod.
Give it to him. Just all over.
Thank you.
I mean, you've had a lot of nicknames. Obviously, it's hard to knock the best in the world, but do you have a favorite? Where did the name come from? Let us know.
My favorite, Punk was my nickname when I was a little kid. So I remember when I started wrestling, I went to wrestling school and I was getting in the ring and I was racking my brain because I was trying to come up with a cool name. And I'm a child of the 80s, so I love G.I. Joe. So I was like, what's a cool code name? You know what I mean? And my trainers were finally like, everybody, we all call you Punk, just be Punk, and it kind of just happened that way. But I was like, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, these are cool names, I needed something like that. winds up just being Punk. So that's my favorite nickname, but I do have a lot. A lot of people call me a lot of different things.
Some to your face, some behind your back.
Mostly behind my back. Yeah.
My family member of mine got his artist name because he was cold with the ladies. Now the CM and CM Punk. I need to know what that CM is for.
Stands for Cube Man. huge Ice Cube fan, obviously.
Naturally.
Obviously. The CM thing, it originally stood for Chick Magnet. And I tried to get rid of that because I thought that was a little silly, you know.
It's wrestling.
Yeah, it's just wrestling. But it kind of stuck and it became CM Punk. And I just, I can't really complain because things sort of worked out okay.
Yeah,
We're doing all right, But it is a silly name. I always laugh when people complain about stuff like see people complain about some of the ridiculous names that some NXT kids pick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I going to say? My name's CM Punk. Like, It's the stupidest name.
CM Punk.
What are you going to do?
It's the most chantable name I know. I mean, I've heard it at Laker games.
Wow.
Yeah, dude.
Well, they got nothing else to chant for.
Oh, okay.
That's
It's not even October yet, man. Come on.
So, Punk, let me ask you, we're talking about the name. What was the moment? Like, as a kid, what do you remember about wrestling that made you fall in love with it? And who was the wrestler that made you go, wow, I love this?
100% Roddy Piper, but I was born and raised in Chicago. So the first time I saw wrestling had to be like some Saturday Night's Main Event stuff, right? Like maybe I was trying to watch Saturday Night Live. I was a little kid, and like you see this insane production where people are beating the crap out of each other, and they're But man, it was so long ago, and I'm so old now. It's like hard to. Everything's starting to get a little fuzzy from back then,
I understand that.
But that was the time. So I didn't know wrestling existed like outside of this. So I was very much a Chicago, Midwest WWF kid. It wasn't until like I realized, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, that I discovered like everything else like outside of it and how great like the business was even prior to that giant boom in the 80s, just so I think there's not a lot of wrestling historians left.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm one, but we're running out of guys, man.
Yeah.
So, the people who have lived it and worked in it and grew up fans and got in the business the right way, there's only a handful of them left. So, and I feel like I'm of the age now where I might be one of those guys now.
It's funny you brought up Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper sat in one of these two chairs years ago. It was a Friday. Did an interview with Rich, and the next Friday he passed away. And so we literally got Roddy 1 week before he was gone, and it was hard when it happened. Being an old school wrestling fan, because I sat on a couch right here, and I wasn't even on the show at that time. I was working for DirecTV, but I came to the studio. Every time a wrestler was here, I'm coming. And I remember I had a Macho Man T-shirt on, and he saw me, and he came over, and he hit my knee. He's like, "How you doing, guy?" And I thought about getting a picture, but I had one from years ago.
Oh, man.
I didn't want to bother him because I already had that picture. And then he passed away 7 days later.
Yeah, it's different when you lose somebody of that magnitude and you just saw him.
Yeah.
I filmed with Ray Liotta and then lost him shortly after. I spent my birthday at his Hollywood Walk of Fame in the rain without him. So I completely feel how you feel. Is there anybody in the business who you've lost or you've seen us lose that really affected you?
There's too many to talk about. How long we got? Because obviously, I feel wrestling is notorious for that, right? Like we are constantly losing wrestlers, and it always seems to be way too early. And wrestling, I feel like just like anything else, like I could not talk to somebody for 5 years and then see them and get on like 2 days passed, or not even 2 minutes passed. So it was up when Bray died.
Yeah,
that hurt.
Yeah. And hopefully we're bleeping that, right?
Yeah,
I got the A-OK to speak freely.
Speak freely, baby.
We'll see.
We'll see.
You do.
We didn't talk about that.
Brody, Luke Harper, when he died,
that was tough. Yeah,
because those were. I remember where I was when I was told, and I remember like you get hit with that thunderbolt where you're just like, oh, and you got to sit down, and you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Like he's young. What, it's almost refreshing when you hear of, a wrestler like, oh, how old was he? Oh, he was 88. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He had a good, had a good run. And there's an argument to be said that maybe 88's still too young, but for a wrestler, it's
like you're Methuselah at that.
Yeah.
point.
Yes. Yes, you are.
And,
yes, you are. But there's too many, but I think Bray and Brody were the two ones because they're so young and they got little babies.
Yeah.
And it's so just like one of those things that like, it just stings. Just talking about it now, it still stings. And it's truly like unfair.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel like with wrestlers, right? When you talk about hockey players and football players, to a lesser extent, basketball, football, hockey, they've got pads on, they've got helmets, they're pretty much covered up.
Yeah,
you guys are pretty much naked to us.
Yeah,
I mean, and I don't.
Almost
I'm not trying
literally.
to be.
I've been.
But I'm saying
I've been in some matches, man.
It almost makes you feel like you're almost closer because there's nothing hiding you guys except for the mass wrestlers, obviously. So I always felt like that kind of made us feel more attachment because we watch you guys grow and get older and go from black hair to gray hair and your body changes, and it's just like a weird thing with wrestling that I just feel like we feel more attached to wrestlers because there's not all that stuff covering them up, and you guys just seem more real. If that makes sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense, and you're right. We're not wearing helmets. We're not like a number.
Yeah.
Like, in sports, obviously, like what's more important is the logo on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back. And in wrestling, it's almost like the exact opposite. Like you're trying to get yours, and you're trying to elevate yourself and your name and your brand. And you're not wearing a helmet, and you're super recognizable in public, and especially if you have stupid tattoos, like it's hard to hide, especially if you're a complete fool like me and you just wear your incognito outfit on television. So you can no longer even just move around in a hoodie with the hood up and like nobody will look at you.
No, that's him.
Yeah. Yeah. I went and ruined that. Yeah. 100%. I also think maybe shelf lives are kind of shorter. There are people in the NFL, NHL that have 20-year careers, but those are like the outliers.
Yeah,
whereas, a guy like Hulk Hogan, a guy like Randy Savage, they're so ingrained in pop culture and they're so recognizable. Like they've had these super, super long careers instead of like there's hockey players that get in, they do 4 years on a team.
They're out.
And it's a tough sport, but then they transition to like real life. And I feel like wrestlers just always have more trouble doing that.
That's interesting.
I mean, with the storylines and with everything that, as fans, our belief goes into, I feel like feel like I've been through these things with you. I know, as a fan, there were many times where, like, I hated guys. I don't like you.
They're doing their job great.
When I first met Chris Jericho, I told him to his face, I hated your guts. Couldn't stand you. Like, now I understand what you were doing, which means you were great at your job. But like, as a fan, were there guys that are like, well, who are the guys that you hated, that you couldn't stand?
Oh man,
just as a fan.
If you like Piper, you probably didn't like Hogan, right?
Yeah, but I'm trying to think if there was somebody. I'm trying to figure out the timeline of like when I was watching wrestling and then when I really kind of became like a smart wrestling fan.
Yeah.
You know, So like everybody kind of has that
moment,
that rebirth where they're like, oh, and then things kind of do change because you do realize like, oh, this person is the character. I've worked some really strong baby faces in my career. I've been really fortunate to be across the ring from guys that the people really believed in and really loved.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I can narrow or single out a wrestler that I hated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Aside from being, you know, a smart wrestling fan, he's like, oh, I hate that guy because he doesn't know how to work. You know, like, that. Yeah. Like there wasn't any like visceral like hatred. Like I would watch Hogan wrestle Andre and Bobby Heenan, and I wouldn't be like, man, I hate these guys. I think I was just, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I think I was just too
kind of in tune.
Not in the, maybe in tune, not like in the know, because, you know, like I wouldn't have been like, oh, this is all phony.
Yeah. But you get it.
But you're on the fence. You're like, I don't know if this is all on the level, but yeah.
I'm gonna let you know right now, I couldn't stand you when you cashed in on Jeff Hardy.
Good. That was
like,
the desired result.
It was such a level of aggravation. It was just like, of course, this is the dumbest rule. This briefcase needs to be out of here.
Do anything.
Yeah, like everything, dude. I couldn't. Hated you guys, man.
Good.
You're chill now.
Good.
You know, you're a good dude. Can you remember
Talk
when
to me in 6 months.
I'm a little brother. You know, my big brother really showed me wrestling, and my first introduction to wrestling was through video games. Like WWF Raw, Sega Genesis is the first introduction to wrestling for me. And then, you know, he's showing me these guys, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, and later on, Nintendo 64 comes out, and I started looking at WCW. Don't kill me, but this is before I know anything. I'm thinking Hulk Hogan is a straight WCW guy. Like, this is where I saw him. I've never seen him anywhere else.
So that was your first intro to Hogan?
Yeah. So I'm looking at these guys like, okay,
I really am old.
I thought you told me Bret Hart was with WWF. Oh yeah, he's here now. What do you mean he's here now? What are you talking about? Why is Razor Ramon's name not Razor Ramon over here? And so like those were the first steps for me, like getting like, oh, these are like competing promotions. Like this is like
just growing up and
thing.
Shattering our childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Realizing.
Can you remember when
capitalism runs everything?
As a fan, the first time wrestling broke your heart?
Ooh, as a fan.
I mean, Hulk Hogan running over the Rock in an ambulance scarred me.
Maybe, unless I can think of something that was earlier, I remember being confused as to why, was it WrestleMania 9? When Hogan just like came out of nowhere.
And challenged Yokozuna?
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
After the Bret Hart match,
Yeah.
Yokozuna beats Bret Hart.
That doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it didn't feel good at all. As a kid, like, didn't feel good at all. And I don't know how smart or not smart I was at that point, but I remember watching it and just being like,
yeah.
What?
That didn't fit.
So for those who don't know, WrestleMania 9, Bret Hart wrestles Yokozuna in the main event. Yokozuna beats Bret Hart. Then all of a sudden, Hulk Hogan comes to ringside with a black eye that we don't even know how he got.
Like, knowing what I know now, like the finish of WrestleMania with like the heel up is just kind of like flat. You know?
So you don't like the bad guy winning at the end?
And you don't, I mean, there's a time and there's a place for it. You know.
That wasn't it.
It for sure wasn't it, TJ.
You know, it was just so weird when Bret had salt, Yokozuna or Mr. Fuji, I guess, threw the salt in Bret's eyes. And then Hogan's coming down talking to him, and Bret's like, yeah, go get him. And I'm like, wait, what? Go get him? What is
sanctioned?
How's this real?
They made Bret look,
a little suspect.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's for sure a heartbreaking moment. And it, to this day, like, I know why, but it's confusing to a fan of just like, okay, I mean, sure. I mean, I like Hulk.
If it's cool, can we like fast forward a little bit? Let's talk about.
I mean, if I said no, is it going to throw you off?
Well, I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm going to be like, well, thank you for coming out. Like, okay, so
I got nothing but time, brother. Let's go.
August 20th, 2021, you made your return to professional wrestling. My question is this: you're sitting in Gorilla, right, waiting for that music to hit. Was there any part of you that maybe questioned, like, because I saw AJ Styles talk about being in the Royal Rumble, and he was nervous because he didn't know if the people would know him.
Yeah.
Obviously, people are going to know you. But was there any part that you don't seem like a guy who would get nervous, but like what was there any part of you that questioned like the reception you were going to get that first time in so long? And then after your music hit and you heard that ovation, I mean, you made grown men cry.
Yeah.
And like, what was that feeling like for you?
So most people who do live television, I haven't really experienced it like doing TV and movies because you can just do another take. You can
I
just,
was just about to bring that up.
you can just kind of like step out and go, I need a minute, you know,
Yeah.
this, that. So there is pressure to that, but there's not pressure like live television, live sports, you know,
Crowd.
Broadway.
So yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know what it's like to play Game 7 Stanley Cup final, you know, home game, and be down there for the face-off and the puck drops. I don't know what that experience is like. I think I could maybe draw some parallels to things that I've done in my career. But yeah, coming back, there's a level of imposter syndrome that I think I've always dealt with, right? Because as much as I've always been that guy that shuts out all the negative voices, those voices are still there. And after not doing something for 7 years and famously having this very public, ugly breakup with the company and not doing anything for 7 years, it's just like the thought is, well, are the people going to care? Are they going to remember me? Now, you also have a pretty good idea that, yeah, you know what?
They will.
I just sold out the house that Michael Jordan built
Right.
on a rumor. I'm pretty sure they're not here to throw tomatoes at me,
Yeah.
but there's still always that little bit of doubt.
Yeah, that's what I'm
and
saying, yeah.
people want to talk about, oh, you know, if you could bottle that adrenaline and that feeling of, you know, like your highest high. I thrive in being uncomfortable, and in that moment, I was so uncomfortable because I was so uncertain, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I wanted to sit there and just be like, yeah, this is great. I've never felt more alive.
Yeah.
Really?
Because I've had low lows where I'm just like, oh, I wish it was all over with. And I've had high highs where I'm like, I never want this to end. But there's that middle part that I've experienced a couple times, fortunately, because I went through the same thing when I came back in Survivor Series to the WWE. But man, that uncertainty, but then like looking around me and like seeing all these people who just like, you know, my peers, my colleagues on their phones, like filming it,
Yeah.
you know, I was just like, okay.
And this is all in the lead up to you.
Yeah.
And I think you got a quote, you'd rather choke on greatness rather than starve on mediocrity.
100%. Yeah, I'd rather, I mean,
beast.
I've famously done this my entire career. I'd rather take a big ass bite and try to swallow it and realize, oh, maybe I bit off a little bit more than I can chew. But if this is the way I'm going out, you know, at least I wasn't sitting here with like more, please. You know,
Exactly.
no.
Have another side.
I'll take my bite. Yeah.
You know, and you know, speaking of the do they remember? Obviously, you knew that they would because your name. People have been chanting your name in
Rings
the arenas
bells.
for years. Like CM Punk, your name rings bells like Sunday at 12 o'clock. You know what I mean? Through our wrestling fans. So it's interesting just to hear your point of view of that because I know as the rumors came, fans were just ready. They were ready to see you again after so long. And then in June of 2023, you exit the company. What was your thought then? Were you like, okay, I'm done with wrestling? Was there any part of you going, maybe I'll start my own gig? You know, what was any ideas of what your next chapter was going to be when you left?
Well, you know, I think, again, talking about the tools that we as an industry have taken away from ourselves, I explain it like this to people. Like in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 60s, we're not on cable television, but the industry is absolutely thriving. I know everybody likes to say things like Vince McMahon came around and he revolutionized the business and he brought it to new heights. He did in a way, but they were packing Texas Stadium in the early 80s. They were packing Shea Stadium with, Bruno and Zabisco.
Yeah.
Like business was good. And there were different territories for different guys to go work in all the time. It'd be like if there was one movie studio.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be like if there was one record label. You're going to get, competition helps. So when I left WWE in 2014, people can argue very much so in bad faith that like, oh, he didn't love the business because he didn't go work the indies. What the fuck was I gonna? Yeah. What was I gonna do?
Yeah. Right.
You'd already done that.
And then, but it's a little bit of that. But then there's also the part of like, who's gonna pay me?
Yeah. Yeah. Very important.
Like, oh yeah, like go back and work for $60. Like, well, like I'm married now. I got a, mortgage. I say I got a mortgage, but I didn't. I bought my house cash.
It's all right. Wow. Dude's got a laptop.
Me personally, I have like 7 CM Punk shirts, so I know that, those merch sales probably did so. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So when I exit AEW, I definitely wasn't like, I'm gonna. I probably did think, okay, that was it. I was done. Yeah. And then, because that happened in, I don't know, August or September. And then I'm just like kind of chilling. And then, Nick Khan calls me in November and he's like, when are you free and clear? And I was like, Nick.
I don't know if you heard.
I was fired.
Heard it through the grapevine that I might be free.
Yeah, like very, very publicly. How do you not know that? He's like, oh, no, I know. He goes, certainly you're not telling me that there's not and then he just stopped himself and he went, okay, we want to talk to you about coming back. And then I was just like, I'm on my way to the gym and I'm flying. I think it was flying to Atlantic City the next day for a CFFC show where I do commentary. And I was just like, sometime shoot me times next week and we'll get on the phone and like, we'll talk. And wheels just started in motion, and you're on the phone with them and somebody says something about Survivor Series being in Chicago and you go, oh.
What?
Whoa.
Oh, man.
But we can't get a deal done in that amount of time.
Who says?
But that's the spot.
That's the spot.
That's the spot. So how eager are both sides to realize it?
How eager were you?
As eager as they were.
Yeah. It couldn't be the Raw in Nashville the next night.
Yeah.
It had to be. Yeah.
No, because I think when we first started talking, it was just like, okay, the typical Rumble. You come back for the Rumble.
Right.
But
easiest one.
But me being the creative that I am, I was immediately just like, yeah, I get it, but that's what you do. That's what you do with everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets that. Yeah. So like, and then it was a gift. Survivor Series is in Chicago. It's just in 3 days. So
come on, you got to make it.
And one of
work.
those 3 days is Thanksgiving. It ain't a business day. Lawyers aren't working, so
the lawyers had to work overtime in 48 hours, right?
Brother,
I can't imagine the bill you got.
I'm a master at making people mad at me for stupid reasons, and a lot of people were mad at me that weekend.
But guess what? A lot more people were happy with you.
Yeah,
I think
me
so.
For one, right? when you came back, I was trying to get suspended from Twitter that night.
You might have been one of the people who was texting me. I can't remember. I'd have to go back, and you were asking me like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Happening?
And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Yep. And then you hit me with that stupid devil mask face. And I was going nuts on Twitter. I apologize to everyone who blocked me, but it's who I am. That's why I'm here today.
To hell with them.
Now you're in Chicago. 48 hours. You guys put this thing together.
Yeah.
You show up at Survivor Series.
Yeah.
You've got Rhodes, Orton, Uso, Rollins, Zayn all in the ring. There had been little rumors and rumbles that maybe it's Chicago, maybe. Okay.
What helped
the match is over?
Yeah, but not to step on what you're saying, but like what helped all of that is anytime they're in Chicago.
Yeah.
And that is precisely why I spent $40,000 on ice cream bars when I came back in 2021, right? And because that was legit a thank you. Thank you for 7 years of chanting my name. And I do have a little bit of sympathy and empathy for the people that were always in the ring when that was going on. Yeah. And I do think a lot of the sourness and maybe hard feelings some people have for me is because of that. When they're busting their ass,
it's not your fault.
They're chanting for me.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, but you know, I understand. I'll deal with it as it comes.
I get that.
But yeah, that's one of those. Man, I wouldn't be anywhere, and I wouldn't be back here if it wasn't for a great many circumstances. But one of them is the fans.
Yeah,
especially in Chicago.
They never forgot you.
But worldwide, people bringing signs and you know, chanting my name. Unbelievable. So they got some ice cream that night.
That's dope. Well, so, okay, Survivor Series is going off there. Now, millions of us are a little bit like, all right, this music's playing, credits are coming up.
Right in the bottom right-hand corner.
And then all of a sudden, static. We hear Vernon Reid hit that guitar lick that wakes me up almost every morning.
Yep.
That place erupted. Now,
that place, my house.
What does that moment feel like? Because there's a split second where we hear, and it's like, what? And then they did the camera shot, right? And they looked right down the aisle, and for about 5 seconds, I'm like, they're effing with us. He's not coming.
It's a pump fake. It's a pump fake.
They would have burned the seats.
Oh, dude.
I got annoyed because I was like, there's no way. And then the white t-shirt, and I was like,
white tee bandit.
You know, so I sit there and I look at rappers, you know, rock musicians, wrestlers. You get a pop from the crowd. Like a normal person like me, I'll never understand what that feels like. What goes through your body when you hear that crowd lose it, and then when you're actually visible to them, because we all lost it.
I'm fortunate that I've had these amazing highs in my career. People always ask me, oh, the Money in the Bank, that crowd reaction, that's crazy.
Nasty.
Oh, when you came back, that crowd reaction was crazy. When you came back in Survivor Series, I've been in my fair share of moments where I go, well, that's it.
Yeah.
Don't get any higher than that. It's literally all downhill from here.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'll have another moment and I go, whoa, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I've never done drugs in my life. I assume that this is what drugs feels like.
I get you.
To want to capture this, to want to do it again. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. It's one of the reasons I'm still doing it, because I'm a creative. So I'm thinking of ways like, okay, how do I chase that? Okay, yeah, that was higher. And I've proven myself wrong so many times, thinking that's the highest of the highest. Nope, this is. Nope, this is. Yeah. I'm going to keep chasing that. And everything I'm doing, all the ideas and everything is building towards, well, what's bigger than that? Right. Oh, well, what's bigger than that? Yeah. Well, it's bigger than that, you know? And sometimes you fall short, but sometimes you surpass it. When I walked out there, when my music hit, and first of all, you ever been in one of those elevators where it's shoulder to shoulder?
Yeah.
Like you can't see in front of you because there's a tall dude, and you're like, well, you know.
Luckily, I'm usually the tall dude.
So, I'm driving to the building, and I don't have a deal yet. And I call my lawyer and I go, I'm gonna drive to the building just in case. Okay. We're just keep working on it.
That's nuts.
Oh, it's insane.
That's nuts.
It's insane.
How long's that drive from the crib to the
case?
I mean, depending on traffic, but at that time of year, no construction. So I think I got there pretty quick. 20 minutes maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, man, I'm stressed out leaving the house. You know what I mean? My wife's like, I'm so excited for you. You know, she's like, just put this white T-shirt on.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I was probably wearing this. I don't know. You know, get to the building. Security comes out, hands me blacks, sweatpants, hoodie. And he goes, sit in your car.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all right. So here, you know, hoodie up. And the truck next to me, because we have pictures of superstars on all the 18-wheelers and the TV trucks and stuff like that. And I'm parked right next to the TV truck. And it's just Steve Austin's head looking at me the whole time. So I'm just like, take a picture, sent it to Steve. Yeah. You know what I mean? He hit me back with a WTF, kid. You know?
First of all, that's amazing.
That's sick.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I just sit there, I'm literally just like sitting
By
there.
yourself in the car.
By myself in the car. I'm listening to the Clash and the Ramones. I'm trying to center myself.
Yeah.
Trying to think about, like 8-year-old me.
In through the nose, out through the mouth.
Like this is just, just literally trying to be in the moment. If this happens, because it still wasn't a guarantee. Like if this happens, it's just gonna set the world on its ear.
Was there ever a chance though, really, that you might be like, "No, I'm peeling out and leaving"?
Me personally, there could have been if there was like some hard nose to some things in the the contracts. But again, I think both sides were eager.
They wanted it.
You know what I mean? But then you get the lawyers involved, and then it's a lot. It's a lot. But I get a text, and it's just like, okay, we're gonna clear the hallway, and we're gonna come get you, and we're just gonna put you in Triple H's office. I'm like, okay. So I run through the building. So like, maybe
hoodie on and
got you wrapped up like Michael Jackson, son.
Yep. They put me in the freight elevator, and it's funny because I know the building like the back of my hand. I'm like, the stairs are right around the corner. I could just walk down the stairs. They put me in the freight elevator. The freight elevator lowers. I hear him on the other side of the elevator. They're screaming and yelling, "Clear the hallway! Clear the hallway!" And I'm like, oh no, I'm that guy now. All the boys are going to be like, this is still, why do we have to, but they clear the hallway and the freight elevator door opens up and hit like 6 steps this way is the door I'm walking into. And I walk in there and I just sit down and then I'm just in there and they're starting the War Games match. Okay. Right. So it's literally like, I don't have a deal yet,
We're at the end of the show.
Yeah. So I'm just sitting in there and the lawyers are going back and forth, hammering stuff out. And Triple H walks in and he's just like, if this gets done, we're just going to wait. When the time's right, we're going to bring you in through Gorilla. And I was like, okay, great. So contracts get executed and it's time. And it's literally just like, okay, deep breath, open the door, walk through Gorilla. And now it's like, there's so many people in Gorilla.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, who was the first person you saw? Like, do you remember the first person you made eye contact with and they were like, what the?
Yeah, right.
Because I got brought into Gorilla, and I don't think people knew. I think people were just piled in there because it's the end of the show and there's social media people who are going to be filming, winners and losers coming through the curtain, and they're doing their job and stuff like that. And I remember being in a Gorilla, and then all of a sudden I get bear hugged from behind. And like, as I kind of turn around to see who it is, it's Bailey.
Standard Bailey.
And she's like, I knew it. She's like, as soon as they started yelling at us to clear the hallway, she's like, I knew it. Yeah. And she's not letting go of me. And then like, the Triple H is there,
It's like, Bailey, let him go.
No.
Stephanie, I remember seeing and having a moment with, there's somebody I haven't seen in 10 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's somebody that, people are like, oh, they hate each other. Regal, I remember looking at Regal and Regal going,
Damn, look at us.
Yeah, like that Paul Rudd video. Look at us. Hey, look at us. Look at us.
100%, but there was just so many people in there. It was like, and then I don't know what to do. I absolutely lose my composure.
Yeah.
Because all I know is I'm coming out.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the set looks like. I don't know if there's a ramp. I'm literally like in the dark,
walking in blind.
And so I'm trying to talk to Triple H over the table, and it's so loud and there's so many people and they like hit my music and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. What am I doing?
Look cool.
And he's like, go out and walk down to the cage. And I'm like, go out and walk all the way down to the cage.
That's crazy.
And he was trying to tell me that there was 2 cages for the baby faces and the heels for War Games.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to walk down and stand in between there. And
So
in
we
my
end
head,
up-
I'm like, I'm marching all the way
All
to the
the way.
cage.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, no, my music's playing.
Yeah.
And you're like, we're going back and forth. And I'm like, we're both freaking out. We're like, no. And like, he rips his headset off. And I'm like, oh God, what are we doing? You know, and we figured it out. But
That's
the
amazing.
place,
I'll never look at that the same.
right?
Again.
Yeah, the chaos backstage, brother. I mean, it's the last minute.
Someone's got to have this on film too. You know?
There was so much stuff going on back there, and they film everything now. So I'm sure someday we're going to see a lot of cool stuff.
Your next.
It
It was just
documentary.
such a great moment, and I love that chaos and that uncertainty again. I was like, man, I could just drink it up all day. But when the music hit, it was deafening.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, and then I'm trying to time it. Because you know you have cues of when I'm going to walk out. This is when I do this. This is when I go here. You know, but the other thing is, tell this story. Once all that stuff started happening, you know, I'm tight with the band. So so they're calling me, going, hey, they're trying to license the song again. If this isn't for you, it's a hard no.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't want to say anything. So I kind of told him it was for me without saying. I was like, maybe you should just let it happen.
Yeah.
And Corey's like, is it you or is it not you? And I was like, Corey, just.
I think
know.
I think you should think about it.
But what we did,
Did they release?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that's because we pay the band.
Okay.
We're not paying the record label.
Oh, okay.
All right.
They re-recorded it and remastered it.
Smart.
Yes.
How quickly were they able to do that?
I feel much better being like, here's
Yeah, that's
your,
very
you know,
smart.
here you go.
How quickly were they able to turn that around?
I mean, I think it was like an anniversary thing anyway. So I
Okay.
think it was already, it wasn't
It was that
something that
perfect
they did.
timing again.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah. The universe,
Yeah.
the universe provides. But again, music hits, and I walk out there, and then when I appear,
Oh,
you know, again, I was like, oh, that's loud. I can't
Yeah.
hear the song.
really?
And then when I appear, and it got to another decibel level, and I was just like, I have never experienced anything like this in my entire life. I felt like I was inside of a jet engine.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't anything discernible. It wasn't, I couldn't close my eyes and be like, yeah, that's a crowd of 16,000 people losing their mind. It was just white noise.
Blistering.
It was just noise. One of the, if not the, hard to argue that it isn't the number one moment of my career.
Yeah, dude. That a pop like no other.
I want to run through a brick wall right now.
Yeah, man. Gets you hyped. Now, you know, here we are. You're getting ready for Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
How do you even mentally get ready for something like that? We as mere mortals, you know, fans, like getting like in Hell in a Cell sounds insane. I don't like
Yeah.
doing it on the game.
I'm mentally prepared that like I know what I have to do, and it's a high pressure situation, and I feel like I have to deliver a classic, and I have to stay true to, you know, myself, my beliefs of what good wrestling is, and that cell that I feel like as a company we've gotten away from for so long, where it just became a toy. Like, we're just going to have a pay-per-view, call it Hell in a Cell, and everyone's going to go inside it and have matches. When in reality, like, that should be presented as the most dangerous, diabolical thing
Absolutely.
that any wrestler would ever want to do.
The way Shawn and Taker set it up, the
Yes.
way Mankind and Taker
Yes.
set it up. Yeah.
Yes. But again, as a business, you know, in a capitalist country, like, you get away with it. You know, you get away from it. So I want to bring it back to what it's supposed to be. I don't want to have a cell that needs a match. I want to have a match that needs the cell.
Oh.
And I feel like me and Drew have done that.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other way. There's no other way to settle this.
You guys are the most vengeful thing that is going through WWE right now.
Yes. So how do you settle that? You put them in a cell. That's it. Once the door closes, the door does not open. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. That's it.
When done right, there is just nothing like a great wrestling match.
Yeah.
Art.
Yeah.
It's art.
It's the best form of theater, athleticism, art. all that combined. There's really nothing like it.
As a performer, when me as the actor has to get the job done, but I get to work with somebody who I was a fan of, were there any moments for you as a performer where, like, you know what you have to do, you know what you have to do in the ring, and that mindset is still there, but it's like, oh my God, I get to work with such and such. How many times has that happened for you, and what were some of your moments?
I doing dark match stuff with Austin, because he would always be around, you know, and it was like one of those things where he was retired, he's out of the ring, but they would bring him in every once and again, you know, like maybe he had a TV show he wanted to promote, or maybe they just, I don't know, wanted to pop the town or something like that. But I think wrestling has always had a difficult time figuring out what to do with people that were no longer in the ring, but were still extremely valuable. Like how do we get more of that out? There's only so many coaching positions, and not everybody is a good coach, but like you got a guy like Steve Austin. I remember I was in San Diego and he's just backstage, like twiddling his thumbs. You know what I mean? I think they were doing like maybe a season of Tough Enough or something like that, like 2009-ish or something. So he was there, and then he's just like kind of sitting there, and I'm looking, and I'm like, nobody's talking to him. He's just sitting by himself.
It's a wealth of knowledge.
And I walk up to him and I go, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "You done for the night?" He's like, "Yeah, I did my segment." I was like, "Well, listen, I got to do dark match," and the dark matches at that point were like the worst because it's an advertised match to sell tickets, so whatever it is, and it was normally me versus John or Ray or Taker or Jeff until he was gone. So I was always the heel doing this stuff, and we were in San Diego, so I'm assuming it was Ray, and I'm looking at arguably the biggest star in the industry.
Whose Ferrari is this?
And I go, "You want to come out and send these people home happy?" "Goddamn, kid, what do you got in mind?" Like, "Well, I'm supposed to do a dark match, and I really don't want to take a bunch of bumps.
Yeah.
And nothing is going to make these people happier than me going out there, beating up Ray, inviting a bunch of other heels out, beating up Ray, and then hit the music. Glass breaks, you come down. I go, you want to give us all a bunch of stunners? And he's just, and like, it's the first time I saw that twinkle in Steve's eye. And he's like, "Goddamn, kid, can we do that?"
It's amazing.
I was just like, yeah. I was just like,
do you know who you are?
"You're Steve Austin. You can do whatever the fuck you want."
Right? Come on.
And now I gotta, now I gotta go get the boys.
Yeah.
Because we're in San Diego. A lot of people have red eyes and stuff. But I remember I got Miz, Truth, and I was like, "Guys, you want to take some stunners?" And everybody, of course, of course is just like,
Yes.
Yeah, let's go. And it just turned into, we're all nerds. We're all just geeks taking stunners from Austin. And he does a beer bath, and like those people went home happy. Absolutely. Those people are going to come back the next time. They're going to walk past the box office and be like, "I had such a good time. I'm buying tickets now."
Yeah.
It's like when I worked with Brett. And I say worked with Brett like I worked a match with him. But he came in, and again, I was working.
Just made me think.
I was working a match with Ray. I want to say maybe Brett was the referee. This is just on some random Raw, And again, they bring Brett in. They're not really doing anything with him. I feel like we can better facilitate now what to do with all of these legends when they come around, instead of just like, cheap pop. Here he is. Look at him.
Wave and
I want to involve him, and I selfishly never got to work with a Steve Austin or a Bret Hart. So of course I walk up to Bret and I'm like, "Hey, I have an idea. You can say no if you want to, because I never know if anybody wants to do anything or whatever. What do you think of after the pin? I shove you and stuff like that. You want to punch me and put me in a sharpshooter?" And again, and I see him light up, and he's just like, "Yeah,
I do."
Is that okay with you? Is it okay with me? Please. I'm a bad guy. Put me in the sharpshooter, Bret Hart, please. So and there's been, I don't want to say countless times I've gotten to do that with some legends that I never thought I would be able to work with in any capacity. But yeah, again, fortunate. Like I got to do that with those guys.
All right, hold on. I know. Okay, we didn't expect Punk to come in here and talk for almost 2 hours.
Nah,
we
definitely
get it.
not.
What you gotta wait? I mean, are you gonna cut CM Punk off when he's telling stories?
I'm not getting put to sleep.
Yeah, no. I'm not doing that. So please come back next week for part 2. We will not only finish our Punk interview, but we will also get into the results of Bad Blood.
Exactly.
Also, we'll get into the 5th anniversary of Dynamite and those results. There are things that we're going to talk about with Punk that I've never heard before.
For
I don't
sure.
know if you have.
Definitely
But
not.
we get into some great stories about the great Paul Heyman.
Yep. Stories about him being on the road. Road stories are always
Road
great
stories are
wrestling.
gold. You will not want to miss next week. We also ask him what wrestlers he would like to have in a bar fight to help him get to the car.
And also because he spent so much time with us. For anyone, really, when you come on here, we're going to induct you into our Hall of Fame. So I asked him, CM Punk, give us 3 matches to put in the Hall of Fame with you, and those answers might surprise you.
Yeah, absolutely. He also might give you some interesting tidbits about Kofi Kingston.
And remember, guys, No Contest Wrestling Podcast on Instagram. Check us out. It's a brand new page. We're starting from scratch. Help us build it up.
Next week, we hope to see you there. We know we'll be.
Part 2 of CM Punk.